Occult, that is atheism. Why am I calling atheism an occult?
Woo boy, this is going to be a doozy.
Well, if you've been on YouTube recently, you often have a lot of YouTubers like the Atheist Voice who pretty much tell their viewers and their subscribers how they should live and how they should think.
You mean he discusses ethics without resorting to wild claims such as a particular god existing, right? Because that's a fairly normal topic of discussion. Discussing ethics isn't reserved for the religious alone. Believe it or not, atheists can also discuss ethics, and we do so by weighing the real-world merits and consequences of our actions. There's no divine authority commanding me to follow his advice. There is no atheist Bible he can point to and say I must follow it. If he wants me to agree with him, he'll have to actually convince me that he's right. This is why secular ethics consistently outstrips religious morality. It's able to adapt to the situation and to our understanding of any given topic.
For example, the Atheist Voice has about 187,000 subscribers. The majority, I presume, are atheists. And you have people like this guy, the Atheist Voice.
You mean Hement Meta? It's right there in the description box of his video. Research. That's how good videos happen.
Who basically say, for example, one of his videos states, atheists should be organ donors. And I watched one of his videos that was pretty much criticizing pro-life atheists who he said were made up 11% of atheists who were adamantly pro-life, and he was telling them that they were being hypocrites, that the atheists' ideology doesn't allow them to be pro-life, that they were being hypocrites.
Well, I'm going to have to take your word for it, Jacob, because you didn't use a clip of his video, and didn't even bother to link to the video you're talking about. Honestly, I doubt very much that he said atheists were hypocrites because of their ideology. Atheism isn't an ideology. It's the lack of belief in God, or the rejection of the claims that the religious make. If Hement wanted to call a non-religious person a hypocrite for being pro-life, he'd have to go after something they do hold as a belief system of some sort, such as humanism or their personal code of ethics. Just because they don't believe in God is no guarantee that they're going to agree with their ethical stance on abortion.
Okay, and that's the kind of preaching that you would get in a religion. In a religion that tells you that you must act a certain way.
No, the kind of preaching you'd get from the religious would be some moralizing busybody telling you that he or she understands what their invisible supernatural deity wants from you, and how you should interpret some ancient literature. This isn't what Hement is doing. He's making his case for a particular ethical stance, but he's doing so without resorting to divine authority or bad literature.
And in fact, many atheists believe that you should act in a certain way when dealing with society.
People do, Jacob. All of us. We all have expectations and opinions about how people should act ethically in society. We all judge each other based on our actions, whether you're religious or non-religious.
And I'm not saying that all atheists agree with one another the same way not all Christians agree with one another.
No, they don't, but they all believe in the resurrection of a son of God. They all believe that their book of myths is in some way correct, and that a supernatural being has laid out a code of conduct for us. They just differ on the interpretation of that text and how it should be applied. But their book isn't true, Jacob. It's not true historically. It's full of contradictions. And even most Christians agree that many of the stories are metaphors because they don't match observable reality. The book was written by primitive humans who knew less about the world than the average sixth grader today. Imagine confronting one of the people who wrote the Bible and whipping out your cell phone and taking a picture of them, or playing a tune from your music library. They would likely think you were a god of some sort. These are the same people you think can guide us ethically in the year 2017. I don't. They did the best they could with the information available, and now it's up to us to improve on those ethics using the information available to us now. It's time to ditch the God myths and start thinking for ourselves.
There are different sects of atheism. For example, there's the Richard Dawkins atheist, the militant atheist. They have their own ideology and their own way about going about dealing with society and the religious and morals.
There are no sects of atheism. There is no Richard Dawkins sect. There's only Richard Dawkins, who happens to be a very good scientist and an outspoken atheist. That doesn't mean I or any other atheist needs to listen to him, or that he has some sort of divine authority to back his arguments.
Well, and for the most part, according to the Pew Research poll, about 69% of atheists align themselves with being Democrat, and a majority of 56% call themselves politically liberal, for the most part.
Oh, the horror! What shall we ever do? Who cares, honestly?
So, I mean, there you have about a huge majority of atheists aligning with the Democratic Party, which pretty much promote same-sex marriage.
Good. Step in the right direction. And one that was held up far too long by religion. Also, many religious people also support same-sex marriage, and they even use the Bible to justify that support. It's a funny old world, huh?
Abortion.
Good. But any arguments against abortion should be made using facts and not ancient bad literature.
They promote freedom of profane expression.
What the hell is profane expression? What does that even mean? Are you talking about naughty words? Are you talking about discussing a lack of belief in God? Are you talking about topics you don't personally find wholesome? Yeah, most people should support freedom of expression, thought, and speech. They're cornerstones of our free societies.
And different kind of stuff. And you see the same ideology over there in Great Britain or in England. You know, you see this liberalism taking place in a world where there is no Christianity, or where liberalism prevails.
In what way is liberalism prevailing in those countries? What about this liberalism troubles you? There are lots of religious liberals who hold liberal ideals as well. I mean, this isn't a phenomenon that is exclusive to atheists. If you're going to discuss these topics, Jacob, you might want to try dealing in specifics. You and your audience would likely get much more out of your videos if you did.
So they pretty much agree with one another on about 80% of things, you know, on 80% of their belief. And here's another example. Most atheists are men. About 70% are men. And they're usually young white men who've just graduated, or who are so-called highly
educated,
indoctrinated. And you have a lot of preachers. I would call the Atheist Voice a preacher. I would call Richard Hitchens a preacher.
Richard Hitchens.
Because they have an ideology, and they're telling people how they must think, and how there are so-called morals that we must all abide by, according to their standard. And we don't all subscribe to the same preacher.
Wow, imagine that. A social species that relies on the building of large societies, who are capable of reasoning and language, converse about how best to run and behave in those societies. Profound.
So don't be misled by these other YouTubers who tell you that not all atheists think the same, because...
Yeah, don't be misled by me, especially when I tell you the truth, which is that not all atheists think the same.
When you reject the idea of a God, then then the only logical belief system is to lean towards what the atheists are preaching. It's two sides of a coin. There's the yin and there's the yang. Okay, and so when you reject God, then you're gonna have to reject a lot of your own morals. You're gonna have to reject a lot of what you believe in, because that's the only option. There's two roads, and both roads have multiple branches.
No, Jacob. There are thousands. Actually, there are likely millions of roads. Some lead to immense human suffering, some lead to human happiness, and many more that lead to a combination of the two. It's up to us to navigate those roads. Religion has taken a large dump on many of those roads, and we're now trying to wipe it off the bottom of our collective shoes. Anyhow, that's it for this video. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. This is the first video recorded with my new mic, so please let me know if you noticed an improvement in the sound quality or whether you think I wasted my money. Take care and cheers.